I would like now to yield to Mr. Andrews, the ranking member, for his opening comments, and I think Mr. Andrews needs to move over to the House floor, so I will yield to the ranking member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on your election to the chairmanship of this subcommittee, and thank you for the genteel and open spirit with which you conduct yourself with your colleagues. You are a very well-respected person, not just around this committee, but around the Congress, and I look forward to working with you. I appreciate very much your contributions to our institution. I'd like to thank the witnesses for their preparation and testimony this morning. I hope that we'll learn a lot by listening to you. As we meet this morning, there are 15 million Americans officially unemployed. And I don't think any of us have lived through a time as difficult as this one in the U.S. economy for our neighbors and for our friends and for many of our own families. I think that the American people have sounded a clarion call for us to put aside our differences and work together to try to fix this underlying economic problem. And it is for that reason that I don't think that this is the most productive use of the committee or the Congress's time. The operating hypothesis for this hearing, as my friend just stated, is that the National Labor Relations Board has, quote, abandoned its sense of fairness and neutrality, close quote, and embarked on a, quote, activist agenda, close quote. The evidence for that proposition appears to rest on 3 points. The first is that there are a host of controversial decisions that have emanated from the board in recent months which are shaking the American economy. I find that to be a curious conclusion given the fact that since the board was fully reconstituted with a quorum in April of 2010, 83% of its decisions have been unanimous. To put that in some historic context, during the Bush years, the percentage of NLRB decisions that were unanimous was 67%. So if the standard for abandoning fairness and neutrality is the number of controversial decisions, it looks like there's been more fairness and neutrality, not less, in recent decisions of the board. The second piece of evidence appears to be that the board has embarked on an admittedly unusual, but certainly not unprecedented practice of promulgating rules. Most of the decisions, as the witnesses will educate us, of the NLRB are made by adjudication of decisions before the board rather than by rulemaking. The rule that has triggered today's hearing is a rule which essentially says that employers have to download from a computer a poster and put it on their bulletin board. The poster says, here are your rights as a worker. If you want to join a union, here are your rights vis-a-vis your employer. And if you're in a union and you think that your union has done something illegal to you, here's your rights against your union. So the activism that has bred this morning's activities consists of employers being required to download a poster and put it on their bulletin board. Frankly, the activism that I think that we would need would be a bipartisan discussion of how to create jobs in the country, not avoid something as relatively modest as that. And then the third piece of evidence is that the board has made, evidently, a series of decisions with which the majority disagrees. Well, I would submit that the majority has 3 remedies if it disagrees with the substance of the board's decision. The first is a political remedy. Obviously, there will be a presidential election in 2012, and the voters will decide whom the occupant of the White House should be that should make decisions to nominate, for advice and consent by the Senate, members of the board. And the public will work its will. The second remedy for any perceived decision of the board that's incorrect is judicial. If a party is aggrieved by a decision of the National Labor Relations Board, it has the right to go to the Court of Appeals and have the courts of this country decide whether the board acted within its purview or outside of its purview. And then the third remedy is legislative. If, in fact, the committee feels that there has been some interpretation of the labor laws which is harmful to the economy, the committee has it within its jurisdiction and authority the ability to file a bill have hearings, mark up the bill, put it up for vote on the House floor and the Senate floor, and see if the president will sign it. So it strikes me that what we're doing here this morning really refutes the principle or the hypothesis that the board has abandoned its sense of fairness and neutrality. I think what's more accurate is the majority has abandoned its promise to, quote, focus like a laser beam on the problem of unemployment. And so rather than focusing on these matters this morning, it would be our view that we should work together to try to create jobs, as I'm sure we'll be able to work together on many issues in the future. Again, I congratulate the chairman. I thank him for his time. Let me apologize to witnesses in advance for one thing. Our committee is now responsible for time on the House floor for the resolution before the House today, and I'm required to be there for a few minutes to participate in that. My departure is by no means a reflection of my lack of interest in your testimony. I read your statements, and I will be back as soon as I can. I thank the chairman for that.